Hello and wow, we're going to keep that. Hello and welcome to the follow-up. Jesus, my brain.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our September wrap-up of Hubris, highly unsolicited book reviews for invested spouses. My name is Jess.
I think my name's Mark.
I was going to let Mark do the intro, but because he botched it, I did what all wives do and save their husbands from disaster.
Yep. It's just my brain. I started talking and my brain was like, as we've established, I'm not good at words.
Mark had to do an exam test thing this week, and one of the sections was words, and he did not do good on the word section, but he did good everywhere else.
I think I did fine. It was like one of those, like, I'm applying for a job. It was like one of those HR things where they're like, we're going to assess your literacy and numbers and pattern recognition. So, it's like basically a bunch of Wordles. Problem is I suck at Wordle. Like, I'm actually not bad at Wordle, but like word scrambles for whatever reason, I'm like okay at them, but that's like,
it's okay. You can have some weakness.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I didn't do too hot on the word scrambles, but I felt very confident with the math and the patterns.
Yeah.
So.
But anyways, we have actually a light month to go through this month, and technically we are recording this a day early.
So we could squeak one more in there. Average time to read this month is 1 day a book per day.
Yeah.
We're a little bit behind though, because Jess has only read 27 books this month. Audible gasp.
It was a slow month for me, and honestly, one of the reasons why it was slow is because I kept starting and dropping books. Like this month, it was just a really hard month for me to get into books, and I also went through my TBR list, and I went to some of the oldest books that have been sitting there for a long time and put a lot of them on hold at the library and started them and stopped them. And I was like, okay, obviously there's a reason why I haven't read these books yet. And there were some bad ones, and just overall it was not a great month for me, but still 27 books is honestly more than some people read in a year. So
sure enough,
for me, but still a lot of books.
Yeah, still a book a day, which is weird that's light, right? Like your usual average is a book and a half to 2 books a day.
Well, yeah, especially if I read say 50 books in a month, and there's 30 days in a year. Or 30 days in a month.
30 days in a year. See,
yeah.
We're both in the same space right now, which is clinging to life, desperately hoping our child doesn't wake up.
But anyways, I feel like we also talked about some of the books this month in the podcast.
We've actually covered a third of them. So
this will be quick.
Well, either that or we'll talk about the other ones.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll start with, start of the month. Oh my God, Jess, we did it again. We got through an intro in under 5 minutes, and now we're talking about the books.
Let's do it.
Do you want to do another tangent? No. So Magic the Gathering.
Oh my God.
All right.
Keep going. Stay on track, Mark. Focus.
I can't. My ADHD brain won't let me.
Lightlark.
Yeah, so we already talked about the Lightlark series. And you rated them pretty well, 2.75 and 3 stars for books 1 and 2.
Yeah, and it's actually funny. As I was saying to you, hey, are we going to start the podcast? And I suggested that we do our September wrap up. I had remembered that this was the first series that I read this month, and I remembered when I read it that I was really looking forward to the next book coming out, and even though it wasn't the greatest series, I still enjoyed it. And then I was literally crap, I don't even remember what happens in that series now. It clearly was not. I enjoyed it in the moment, but I don't really think it stuck with me. The characters weren't that memorable. The plot was very meh, and
tell me how you really feel.
Listen,
hey, Alex Astor, sorry we dunked so hard on your book.
I really, really liked it when I read it. It was I think I described it as a train wreck that you just couldn't look away from. It was I just need to know what happens. But now I'm damn, oh yeah, there was
Druids
the shadow
guy
and the light guy, and the light guy was kind of bad, but so was the dark guy, and then they had this history, and they went back and forth. Yeah.
Oh, is that the one where her memories got erased?
Yes.
And then, see, I do.
You listen.
I'm here for it.
You're here for it.
Listen.
Yeah. So listen, I do want to know what happens in the next series, but like, I felt like that series left more of an imprint when I read it than I think it actually did.
Okay. Well, moving right along to another series we talked about, Caraval.
Yes.
Which you did like.
I did like that entire series, and I did enjoy the spin-off Once Upon a Broken Heart series. If the author, I think her name is Stephanie Garber, am I right? Mm-hmm. If she does more books in this world, I would probably still read it, just because I really do enjoy the whimsy of it. But it is young adult, so like if you're coming into it like expecting like this mature plot, you're just not gonna receive that.
This was the two Italian girls when they escape from the alcoholic father and they go to the carnival because their wishes will come true, but they're actually related to somebody in the carnival, or their family had a past in the carnival, and then the carnival guy whose name is Awesome or something. Legend. That hey, I'm Legend Awesome. Okay, Barney Stinson.
I'm Awesome Legend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the series.
Okay.
Yeah, so like honestly, it's like it's a very like mood read. Like if you want to just like hear a lot of colors described and like kind of like have like an Alice in Wonderland kind of feel to it, like it was good. It was a good ride. I did a lot of YA this month, and I think that's why it was a little bit of a slump for me.
Yeah. You're like, where is the smut? Where is the danger?
No. Do you know what? I don't like truly. A book does not have to have smut for me to enjoy it. Truly, it doesn't.
But there's an edge missing from YA books.
No, it's just I've read so many books of 17-year-old girls saving the world that it's like it's just my bubble has popped. Like that's just it just doesn't do it for me anymore. Like I need a little bit more to my plot. I need a little bit more maturity, especially like for instance, I'm reading still the Throne of Glass series, and Selena, or okay, we'll call her Selena because that's what her name is in book one.
Does it change?
It does.
Oh, good Lord.
So
I say good Lord a lot.
I know you do.
I'm not even religious.
So she's just so selfish, and like it's like, okay, the whole world apparently is resting on her shoulders.
This is Assassin Girl.
Yes. It's like the whole world is like sitting on her shoulders, but like she's super like materialistic and she's very selfish, and then like but then she's still like there's like the author is still like driving this plot home that like it's she's going to do something with herself, and it's like she almost like it's like, okay, like if you were really somebody who wanted to take up that mantle, somebody who's in a position of power, that selfish personality, that like I only care about me personality gets a little old pretty quick. And one thing that I have said about Sarah J. Maas's writing in the past, I know we're kind of going a little all over the place with this review, but she's just and with a lot of YA writers, it's like they're writing a 17-year-old girl, and either that 17-year-old girl has the mind of a 17-year-old girl, or she's has the skills and the mind of a 30-year-old, and it's like, okay, you can't have it both ways, right? You can't make immature decisions while pretending to be all mature and wise.
Yeah, it's like you can't be like, I'm an excellent strategic planner in wartime.
Yeah, or I'm the best assassin in the world, but I'm 17-year-old.
But also, did that guy just wink at me? So, yeah. I mean, you could do that. You could.
And listen, some YA books are written really well. Like, there's some books that are written that anybody of any age can enjoy. Like, for instance, Harry Potter. Like, I feel like that is a notorious series that many people McGonagall. Like. Yes. Maggie. Oh my God, what's her last name? Maggie.
Don't look at me. I'm terrible with names.
Yeah, so I can't remember her last name.
Professor McGonagall.
Professor McGonagall.
Use her Christian name.
Yes. But anyways, back to the books.
Well, it's good you covered Throne of Glass because that was one of the books. It's like in this monthly wrap up, so we'll just blow past that one. And this might be the lowest rating you've ever given a book. This was Taming Seraphim.
Oh God,
2 stars.
Okay. honestly, it probably deserved 1.5. And I'm sorry to anybody who enjoyed this book and to the author, but it was just so not my vibe. Like, I do enjoy dark romance as a genre, but this series was following a Lolita assassin.
Goodness.
Yes. And just that title alone should raise your hackles a little bit. So literally, it was this teenage girl who was basically taken by her father, abused by her stepbrothers, and trained to be a Lolita assassin, meaning an underage girl to seduce men and kill them. So, lots of trigger warnings. And then she ends up falling for a hitman. And the hitman basically tries to reform her, but she, anyways, it's overall just was not my cup of tea. Like,
Woof.
I enjoy dark romance, but to me, dark romance has to be between two consenting adults.
Yeah.
And even though she is older in this book, the fact that, it starts with her, being with older men when she's underage, that's just not my stick. Personally, I know a lot of people love it, and there's things that you read in dark fantasy, like for instance, I do not think rape is a good thing at all. It's horrible, but I read a lot in dark romance, and it's something that it's like, when you're reading fiction, sometimes things can be more of a fantasy, more of like a kink in that sense, but anything underage is just not something that really jives with me. So it was not my favorite book, and I just found the main character very immature for, again, being the best Lolita assassin that has ever been, or whatever her role was. She was apparently, this amazing killer, but she was a little unhinged.
Yeah,
actually very unhinged.
It's
really needing therapy.
Yeah, this is like,
and it was just
so
very,
off the deep end.
Yeah, and they were trying to make it almost like not a big of a deal as it was, I think. Like she was, and it just did not sit well with me.
Yeah,
and
knock it down to 1 star and move on.
And honestly, I feel like if they just changed that plot point and she was a little bit older, I would have enjoyed the book way more. But it was the fact that there was this sexual abuse history that just did not.
Well, it's not even that it was the history; it's the whole point of the freaking character.
Yes.
Which is like, okay, come on, like, what the fuck? Jesus.
Yeah.
All right. Find God and then pray to him. Okay, Heartless Hunter.
So this was a really interesting series. I believe it's also YA. And it's basically about this kingdom that used to be run by witches and then got overtaken by, I guess, non-magic people. And those non-magic people are now basically have like a task force together to execute all witches. And how magic works in this system, it's actually a really cool way of doing it. So in order to be able to use magic, you need to use you use basically blood magic. So if you take it from yourself, it does leave scars, and a lot of witches like make beautiful designs, almost like tattoos, in order to use their magic. So basically every time you cut yourself to do a spell, it creates like a faint silver line, so it's almost like decorative.
Just want to jump in. Did we talk about this? We talked about this.
We talked about this outside of the podcast.
Okay, because I was like, we've definitely gone over this entire book, and I remember a lot about it now. Yeah. And I want to make sure it wasn't an episode we did. Okay,
no, it isn't.
Yeah, go on.
So yeah. So
this one was good.
So this girl, her grandmother was a witch, and she had to turn her grandmother in because they basically couldn't escape together. So the grandmother was like, instead of us both dying, like, you turn me in so that you can keep our wealth and basically survive like this crusade, basically. Right. So she does, and she hates it, but she's basically like a double agent because to the public, she's like, this person who is against witches, but in private she tries to save them. And one witch in particular she tries to save is this woman that her grandmother told her to go to this woman so that she could teach her magic. And so this young girl, because she knows that scars would get her basically found out, she uses her period blood to do magic. And it's not as powerful because it's not, there's like a bit of lore about, you know, how you get the blood and how magic works. So like if you take it willingly from another person, it's very powerful. If you take it from somebody unwillingly, you know, it's dark magic. So like there's a bit of like a world building there. And then, you know, this main girl, she is, you know, known as this witch saver. So she goes to go get this woman who she thinks is going to train her. And she finds out that night she got captured by like the police that basically captured witches. So the whole book is her trying to free this witch so that she can learn from her. And the way that she decides to do it is her best friend, who knows she's a witch, his brother is the captain of this guard that sacrifices witches. So it's a dual perspective. So you do see the male, like the captain's perspective as well. And his thing is he was basically abused by a witch, and you know, he saw the darker side of magic and those who were in power with magic. So he was for the resistance. He was kind of like from the grassroots of it and helped them overthrow or take over the land. And so he hates witches, and he finds a lead that makes him believe that the main female character, the witch, is actually the Crimson Moth, so the person that he knows is freeing the witches. So he decides to, you know, try to cozy up to her. She decides to cozy up to him, and they both know that they're kind of using each other, and they're both trying to suss each other out and like stay one step ahead of the other because they're both suspicious of each other. And, you know, they end up falling for each other. So it's an interesting plot. I'm very curious to see how the next book turns out, because the way that the book ended basically paved the way for, even though they're enemies right now, and you know, they know that she's a witch, how it ends. You know, it seems very much that even though they are on opposite ends of the spectrum, that they still really care for each other. So it's going to be a question of, you know, does their greater purpose hold out, or does their love for the other actually bring them together? So I'm interested to see how that ends out.
Nice. Oh, so is the second book out, or is it in the
I think it comes out either in October or in 2025. Ooh. I can't remember.
Nice.
There's a few books that are coming out in October that I've had my eyes on, and now it's blurred on which books are coming out when.
Nice. Well, we already talked about the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, so we won't spend a lot of time on this. Suffice to say, there's fairy tale retellings, yada yada. There's like 8 of them. So
no, there's only 3 books, and it's the story of Jax and Evangeline, which is the spin-off from Caraval.
Oh, I got that totally wrong then.
Yeah, totally wrong.
Which one was I thinking of?
I have no idea.
Moving right along. Sorry about that, listener. Just like, my brain thought of a complete. No, we did do a fairy tale spinoff one though, the Hooks one, and there were like 7 of them. But this was like 2 or 3 months ago. Remember, you read a whole bunch of books about fairy tale retellings?
Oh yeah, well I read a lot of fairy tale retellings.
No, but these one like there was like a series of like 7 books in each. Yeah, and they were all like middling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Not in Love, Allie Hazelwood, 2.75 stars.
So Allie Hazelwood is one of those authors that typically I read her books and I love them. She likes to write women in science a lot. And as a woman who has dated somebody who is in academia, I can appreciate... married somebody who's in academia.
Jeez. Okay, now tell me how you really feel.
I meant dated while you were in academia, but yes, we were also married while you were doing your PhD.
We're also... Listener, I'm getting the axe. It's coming.
I saved you in the beginning of this podcast with your stumble, and you are highlighting mine to the team.
Hallelujah.
Anyways, so usually I really, really like her writing style, like her characters. when you've read her books, you kind of read them all because she tends to write her characters semi-similarly. So that's maybe a critique about her writing. But again, I've always enjoyed her books. This book in particular, it was... I just didn't love the decisions that the main characters made throughout most of the book. And it was the kind of book that if they just communicated better, or if one little thing was different, there would be no book, if you know what I mean. So it just kind of irked me. It was very predictable. And I actually started this book 3 times and kept dropping it for another time. And so when I read it this month, I was like, I just need to finish it. Like, I've already started it and gotten to like the same point each time and stopped. So I'm just going to plow through. And I really felt like I had to force myself to read it, which is why it got a lower rating. It wasn't a bad book per se. Like, if this was the first book you picked up from her and you really enjoy romance, you probably would have liked it more than I did. But it didn't impress me based off of her other writing. Like, I've read all of her books, and I would just say that this, unfortunately, was the weakest of the bunch for me.
Okay. Well, it's a shame. But, you know, when you have like a recipe that you follow, like, you gotta throw a little curve in there, you know? You're making banana bread, boom, throw a little zucchini in there, get wild, you know? So... okay, now we already talked about the Belladonna series a while ago, I'm pretty sure, but this is book 3, Wisteria, and it didn't seem to do very well.
So, just a recap. So, Belladonna is about Death and the main female character, which her name is... Oh my god.
Bella.
No. Her name is...
We can solve it. Right, we can solve this.
Yes. What's her name, Mark?
It says a girl.
Oh god.
No, Signa Farrow.
Signa Farrow, that's it. So it's about Death and Signa, and again, I love Death as a character, so really like the series, even if it was YA. What?
Sorry, it took all my willpower not to say Sigma.
Oh god. Anyways, so moving right along, Foxglove, which is the second book, is again a little bit about Signa and Death, but it introduces basically Fate as a character and the cousin Blythe, I think is her name, and it introduces them as a potential couple, and it ends in a way that it's very obvious that the next book is going to be about them. So I didn't love them as much as I liked the original couple, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this book a fair chance. And to be fair, the first half of the book was okay. I didn't like it as much, but I'm like, okay, this is fine. I'm enjoying it. And I expected it to end in a specific way because it was lining up for that ending. And instead, the author did something that I just thought was really, really, really dumb. And it ended on a note that I really felt like took away from the plot. Like, she could have done a few things that I felt like would have been a satisfying ending. And instead, she made a decision that just ruined the book for me. And from what I read from other people's reviews, they somewhat agree with my opinion. And it was very unnecessary in my opinion. So basically in the first book, Signa finds out that Blythe is being poisoned and she tries to figure out who it is. She finds out that it's her cousin Percy, and she ends up taking Percy's life and giving Percy's years to Blythe so that she can live. So Percy's dead, but Blythe in this book, she is the personification of life. Okay, so she can create life, and she somehow brings her brother back from the dead, but doesn't notice that this is what she did. She didn't know that she did this. And so there's this like bleak character that you know is going around, and you find out later that it's the brother. What would be, and you find out that because she brought him back to life and she wasn't supposed to, and her years were his years, she's slowly dying. So what would make sense for her to do, or the cast of characters to do, in order to solve this problem?
Put that guy back in the dirt.
Right. But apparently, even though he tried to kill her, she's like, I can't kill him. He's literally like a zombie, but she's like, I can't kill him. I don't want to kill him. So fate decides, fine, you want him to live? I will give you my life. Even though they're in a romantic relationship, he was married to life. So she's like a reincarnation of his dead wife. And he's like, I lost you once, I can't lose you again. Because she wants her dead asshole brother, who literally, I think, tried to kill her, who's literally a zombie, to live.
As a zombie.
As a zombie.
You know what? Heard. And makes perfect sense to me. You know what I mean?
So I was just like,
zero
what?
plot holes.
This makes no sense. Like, it's so stupid.
Yeah, it's buck wild.
And like, in the end, she's like, oh yeah, like, you'll find me again, right? And they're like, well, we don't know if he'll reincarnate. And then it's like 17 years pass or whatever. I can't remember how many years. And then it's like, he shows up at the end. He's like, I found you. And that's how it ends. And it's like, are you serious?
So what, he's 17 years old?
I don't remember. It could have been longer than 17 years. Maybe it was 30 or something like that. But again, it was stupid. Still. It was fucking stupid. It was like, literally, there's nothing. Like, what you could have done is you could have had this moment where like brother and sister reconcile and he dies again because he's fucking dead. And, you know, happily ever after, right? But instead they weaved in this plot and I just did not like it.
And now there's just a zombie.
Yeah, and the thing is fate curses him so that he'll never know peace. So it's like he didn't even live a good life. He lived a shit life.
So he lives a shitty life for eternity.
As a zombie. Anyways, it's awful. It was so stupid, and I thought it was really dumb. So it kind of ruined the whole book for me, unfortunately. So
got it.
Really liked book 1. Book 2 was okay, and book 3 took a nosedive for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Monsters and Beauties, book 1, The Beast.
Okay, so I picked this up because I saw it was a short read, and I just needed to feel something that was not a big commitment, because I had kept reading books and putting them down. Like, one of the series I picked up this month and put down was The Cruel Prince. That has been on my list for so long that I found it was more like a bullying thing, and that's just not my stick. Again, it's YA, and I was like, I don't need to read this. I have so many other books I could read. But anyways, this book is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's a spicy Beauty and the Beast retelling where basically Belle's father is in debt with Gaston, and in order to clear his debts, the Beast offers to pay his debts, but he gets Belle, and in his beast form they do the hanky panky. So if that's your thing, read this book.
Woof. Okay, moving right along. Pretty Monster by Sheridan Ann.
So this book has been floated around as a really great book. It's a dark romance.
The 2.5 star rating you gave it would beg to differ.
It took me a really long time to read it. Like, it took me a few days. And it just, like, honestly, I'm sitting here right now and I'm trying to even remember a single thing about it. And I can't remember. It was just, I could not get through it. Oh, it was about this girl and she was a tattoo artist. And, you know, she's being stalked by this guy. And everybody's in love with her. Like, the head of the biker gang is in love with her. Her coworker is in love with her. Her neighbor is in love with her. And then she has a stalker. And you see all the POVs from everybody. And then her stalker starts killing the other men who show interest in her. And then you find out in the end that the guy who's stalking her is actually her neighbor. And she seems totally fine in the end that he killed these other men that she was semi-interested in and at least friends with. And he even kidnaps her for a few days.
Yikes.
And literally she's chained up and he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do with you. She's like, well, let's fuck. And so they fuck for a couple days. And then in the end, they are in a loving relationship, and he's on the run from the law, by the way, because
he murdered
killed his mother.
People. Oh, yeah,
and then killed a bunch of other people, and he gets off on killing, like, sexually. So, yeah.
Jess,
It wasn't a good book.
I don't, I maybe, should I have like a parental control in your Kindle or something? Just like filter.
Excuse me. No, you are not going to control what I read.
No, not control, just monitor. No, it's okay.
Why would you monitor what I read?
That's true. I don't want to know. I don't want to know until this moment right now when I share it with the world. Okay, this one seems like a slight tonal shift. The Pumpkin Spice Cafe.
Again, I just needed a change. And actually, one of my really good friends had suggested that we tandem read this together, like buddy read it. She has not finished it yet, but it was literally exactly what I needed. It was light, it was cozy, it was fluffy. It was basically a big city girl moves to a small town to take over her aunt's coffee shop. And
it's a Hallmark movie.
It's a Hallmark movie.
Book.
And she falls for the farmer who gives produce to the coffee shop.
Yes. It's all we've ever wanted.
It was so sweet. It was so cozy. It was not dark at all.
Yeah. Thank you. We read more of those, please.
It was perfect for sweater weather. Like, you know, I read it while drinking a pumpkin spice latte. Like, it was perfect. It was very cozy, and I actually read a very similar type book to that actually today, so nice. We will get to that at the end. But it was floating around a lot because obviously Pumpkin Spice Cafe, like being September, the title makes it very this time of year. And if you're looking for a cozy Hallmark type book, highly recommend.
Heck yeah. What about Hawk? What's Hawk?
Hawk is a book it is not something that I would typically read because the main trope...
My contributions to this podcast are nothing. Just making freaking like TikTok jokes. Oh my god. What is wrong with me? I'm sorry. Go on.
Fine. So again, Hawk is the trope in this book is not something that I usually enjoy reading. It is a cheating story. Usually
it's this one.
Yes. Yeah. Usually that is not something that I enjoy reading. In fan fiction, the only time I'll ever read a fic with that cheating tag is like if, let's say, the main couple were both in arranged marriages and they're just in love with each other and like seeing each other on the side kind of thing. Like that's usually the type of vibe that I go for. I don't usually enjoy a fic where somebody claims to love their partner and then cheats on them. That's just not my thing. So I was very surprised to like this story. It's written though in a way where you'd be dumb to like her actual boyfriend and the main characters. It's very, very obvious that the guy that she cheats with is superior in every way. And, overall, I actually did enjoy the story. And I feel like if the cheating thing was less of a meh, and actually it's really usually a hard no for me. So I'm surprised I even continued. I actually didn't know that trope was the main trope when I went into it, but I had kind of liked the characters. I was like, I'm going to see how this goes. And I did finish it. I did enjoy it. But I think I would have liked it more if I just was a little bit more into that as a trope. Yeah. So, decent book. You read it well. Like,
the writing must have been good.
It was. And the characters were good. And there was a very complicated kind of plot that made me, like, I knew that there was something.
Was I right, by the way?
No,
okay,
you weren't. But I
made an educated guess about what was going on in the plot.
Yeah, because there was like this like mystery type of thing going through, and so I really wanted to like it hooked me until the end to be like, okay, what was the mystery? And it wasn't exactly what I thought it was, but it was pretty close, and I enjoyed it. So overall, good book.
Okay, now how about That Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Love Potion at a Werewolf?
So this follows That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon.
Yep.
That first book was just really, really funny. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of dumb, but that was the point, okay? This book, again, it was funny, kind of dumb, but because one of the characters is under a love potion, the main female character is like, you can't consent to this, you don't actually love me. And that was just like a huge aspect of the book. And he's like, no, I know what magic feels like you are my mate, like I'm in, like we're meant to be together. It's not just the potion, but the potion is like amplifying the mating frenzy, which is usually which was something that was explained in the first book. So it's just, the whole book is them then trying to get him like free of the love potion, and then you find out that there's like a cult stealing girls, and they're trying to bring back the god that they killed in the first book. So it's like, it was just a little messy in my personal opinion. It was still, it's like, funny.
Why does this book have plot?
Yeah, it was still funny. It's just, I feel like the author was maybe trying to do too much, and I think it fell a little flat for me. But I still enjoyed it. It was still a fun read. It was short. It wasn't a super long book. So even though it wasn't as good as the first, I still liked it. I liked the characters that it followed. They were characters from book one. And overall, it was an okay read.
And then that time I got drunk and saved a human.
Yes, so that is book 3. And it follows, again, characters that were mentioned or were main characters from book 1 and 2. And that one was done a little bit better. It had that whole dragon horde type. It was the main character was again a dragon, so it was a little bit more like the first, but different. And I felt actually it was probably the strongest of the 3 in my opinion. I did like the characters. I did like the development of the relationship. It was again funny, and I think the series is done now at this point. I feel like if the author wrote another book, it'd be like, okay, you're now pulling at straws. Like, I feel like all the good characters have been paired up, or like the point of the other characters that were semi in relationships already. It's like, well, if you expanded on those in a whole book, it's like, well, they already kind of had their time in the sun. So I don't know if a whole book was needed.
Start a new premise at this point.
Exactly. So it was funny. It was fun. I did like that the female main characters were all strong Black women. I don't feel like that is done enough in a lot of books. And, you know, they basically all dated, you know, demons or supernatural beings. But yeah, it was a good book, and I really, really overall enjoyed the series.
Hell yeah. Okay, we're actually making pretty good progress. We're almost caught up now. So we got A Deal with the Demon, book 1 and 2, The Dragon's Bride, and A Kraken's Sacrifice.
Yes. So The Dragon's Bride was, again, because I just read a book about dragons, and I knew that this was on my TBR list, and this was a book that I knew was available on Hoopla that I could easily get. And
Hoopla.
Yes. Again, if you use your local libraries, Libby and Hoopla are your friend. You get so many free resources on there, and it's awesome to support your local libraries and still be able to read books for free. So The Dragon's Bride, I really enjoyed it. It was very wholesome. The whole premise of the book is that human women enter into bargains with bargain demons, and these demons are the only ones that can go between the demon realm and the human realm. And so they bring these humans to the demon realm, and they're all basically pledging themselves for 7 years to be in a deal with a demon. And the parameters of the contract is that they can't be harmed, and if they are harmed, then they're going to be sent back to the human world with no repercussions. The only stipulation is that any child born of these unions has to stay in the demon realm. So what you end up finding out is that the demon population thrives when it mixes with human blood, like in the bloodlines. And they haven't had humans for a while because it's not common, again, for humans to come over to their realm. So they basically, all the clan leaders are given a human girl that have entered into a bargain for 7 years, and it follows the story of these women and these clan leaders, and the clan leaders have to basically treat these women well, or else they forfeit their land. So there's pretty high stakes for the quote-unquote demons or monsters to treat these women well, and they kind of hold the majority of the power. And how time works in this land is basically 7 years in the demon realm is like a couple hours to a couple days in the human realm. So it's not like they're even missing out that much on their life. And you know, one of the main girls, they ask the question, like, so do I age 7 years while I'm there? And they're like, nope, because time, it works completely different here. So it's like almost like no skin off their backs to enter this bargain. They have to be treated well. And, you know, it's the idea that maybe they can, you know, go and experience some, you know, a good time in the demon realm. And so the Dragon's Bride, I guess because in dragon culture, if any child was born, it has to be a legitimate child. So this is the only woman that has to marry her contract person. So they get married. They end up, you know, honestly, getting into a relationship where they were both pretty open to the idea of getting to know each other, and then eventually fall for each other, and eventually do have a baby, and she decides to stay with him, and it's happily ever after for the most part. The conflict in it is very minor, and honestly, I thought it was a good book for what it was. It was very short. Again, it's a monster fucking fic, so if that's not your cup of tea, don't read it.
Was not expecting
but for
the F-bomb.
what it is, it's pretty good. However, the second book, it kind of ruined the series a little bit for me. So it's written. What's the title? Read the title.
The Kraken Sacrifice.
Okay, so he basically ends up sacrificing, quote unquote, his entire kingdom that he honestly didn't really care about, and was ready to pass over to his heir, to be with the human girl that he, quote unquote, couldn't get out of his head. But the entire book, he's, you know, grieving his dead husband and keeps bringing up his dead husband, and it's clear that he's very not over his dead husband, but keeps screwing this human girl. And then it kind of just like leaves him in this weird place where he's like, you know, I'll always love my husband, but now I'm like starting to fall for you, so I'm gonna give up my kingdom for you because I'm very tired of the people I love being killed because I have to put my kingdom first. And it was it was a little messy, and like the plot, like, again, the title is The Kraken Sacrifice, and it's like he didn't really sacrifice anything. I don't know, personally I don't think he sacrificed anything, so
Right.
it didn't feel like it fit.
Kind of like he gave away a bunch of responsibilities and didn't talk about his problems.
Exactly. And and he ignored her for the majority of the book. So it was like, it didn't,
Yeah.
it wasn't that great. And I started the next book, and again, they're very short books. So, you know, you're not going to have a ton of character development, and a lot of it is smut. So again, you're narrowing the window for plot and character development. And I enjoyed the first book. The characters were all right. The second book, not as much. Third book, I actually did not finish it, so I dropped that book.
Cool. Didn't even make the cut. We're not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Souls Trilogy, book number 1, Her Soul to Take. You did 3.75 stars. Pretty good.
Yes. So I did listen to the audiobook version of this, and I'm now reading book 2 through Kindle Unlimited, not the audiobook. And I feel like this is the kind of series that I really enjoyed it because I listened to it. Reading it, I'm finding, especially with book 2, I'm finding it hard to get into. I honestly think I'm going to drop it because you meet the characters in book 2 and 3 in this book, and you kind of figure out how it ends, because basically what I believe all 3 of these books are is they're all taking place in and around the same time, and book 1 just gets you to the end, so you know what happens, and those characters are there, and they're like, they do stuff, and it's like book 2 and 3 is like what's happening in the background. And so it's like I kind of already know where this plot is going.
Take the wind out of the sails.
Yeah, it does. And because of that too, it's like, okay, if I really cared about these characters, maybe I'd want to know more about them, but they weren't really enough in book 1 for me to really care about them. So it's like I already know where this is going. All I'm reading is the smut and how these people got together in book 2 and 3. So I personally do not know if I will continue with book 2. Right now I still have it open on my Kindle as a possibility, but I don't think I'm going to keep going. But I did enjoy book one. The plot was not what I expected, and it kind of took turns again that I wasn't expecting, because the world building, like, the main character doesn't know much about the demon realm, so she's kind of learning as we learn with them, and the premise was actually pretty interesting. So the whole idea is almost like demons are not necessarily the bad guys like how we think of them as. They're more like magical beings that tend towards like possession and mischief and whatnot, but they're not necessarily like a bad guy, like kind of like a Loki type character.
I got you.
And gods are bad. Gods are very bad, and they got kicked out of hell and are basically sleeping on Earth. And so eventually, sometimes these gods start to gain some consciousness, basically whisper in the ears of local people and try to get those people to basically form a cult and sacrifice humans to them so that they can gain power and wake up and take over the world. So in this book, this girl, she returns to this small town that she grew up in to go to university, and she was drawn there, and she starts making friends and finds out very quickly that she is going to be like, her family has a history with the cult that was there, and basically her family has to be one of the 3 that's sacrificed in order to wake the god.
Right.
And the demon who she ends up meeting and screwing ends up falling for her and protects her from the cult leader and tries to keep her away from the god and the creatures that try to attack her, basically. So it was good.
Yeah, it sounds interesting.
Yeah, it was an interesting plot. Again, a darker romance that wasn't too dark. It was almost like, dark light in terms of the male character. Like, yeah, he was a demon. Yeah, he killed people. But he was kind of a cinnamon roll type character. So I tend to... Those are the kind of dark romances that I like. And, it was good. The smut was good. The plot was decent. The characters were good and believable. The bad guy was a good bad guy, and I just overall really enjoyed it. But again, because I knew kind of what was going to happen with the other characters, I still think the author's writing is good. It's just because I know how it's going to end personally, that spoils it a little bit for me. And it's like, I feel like, well, why am I reading another 2 500-page books each in order to get to the same point, right?
Okay. And our last book of the month, Pumpkin Spice and Pour-Overs.
Yes, so this is a very short novella. It's part of a 4-part novella series. I think another one is like fall themed and the other 2 are winter themed. So I will read the second and probably wait until the winter for the other 2. It's a very sweet and short, romance fall book. So basically the premise is there's these 2 people who are on the same train sitting in the same car, and it just so happens that they're both on their way to this small town in Vermont for an interview to take over a bookshop that basically is a part of the touristy part of town that does really well in the fall for pumpkin season, and then basically floats for the rest of the year with locals. So they both want to take over the bookshop. They end up falling for each other because, they end up spending time together. And she didn't expect to have to spend the night. She expected to go visit her grandmother who lives a couple towns away, but she missed the last train. And because it's tourist season, there's no hotel. So he offers for them to share a hotel room. There's 1 bed. Fill in the blanks.
Gotta love the 1-bed trope.
Yeah, and I believe this entire series is a 1-bed trope. So again, if that's your thing, cozy read. I feel like I need a little bit more cozy reads.
Yeah, please.
I've been reading too many dark stuff, too much YA. Again, there's nothing wrong with YA. It's just not for me. I'm still trying to get through Assassin's Blade. I got through a couple hours of the audiobook yesterday in a car ride that I took. Almost a 3-hour car ride. So I'm getting through it. I will finish the Throne of Glass series before the end of the year, but I just feel like this month was such like a stinker personally that, and it's not that all the books I read was bad. It's just nothing really stood out as a great book. There was no 5-star read this month. So I just feel like
You need a shining light.
I need a shining light. I need something to restore my faith in
just reread
Lights Out.
No, well, yeah.
I mean,
you can reread Butcher and Blackbird and just go for a ride. But
I have actually reread it twice already. Like I've done a reread of it, so I don't know if I'd do a third.
Yeah, I was gonna say you should reread the not Modao Zushi, but the other. You just start reading those. They're great.
Heaven's Official Blessing.
Yeah, Heaven's Official Blessing.
I do want to read it. And actually, I have a few other series that I haven't read yet that are all a part of the Seven Seas Dan May series. So I do want to read more. I really want there to be another Seventh Time Loop book, but right now there isn't. It hasn't even come out in Japan yet, so I don't know when the Japanese book, let alone the English version, will come out. So who knows? Maybe I'll read some more light novels because again, I've just been having a really hard time reading really long series or really long books because it's like I find that if I'm reading a 600-page book, something better freaking happen in that book. You know what I mean? And a lot of the times I'm getting to page 300 and I'm like, guys, this is a full novel that I've read and nothing's happened. Like, you know?
Yeah. Maybe you should read the Stormlight Chronicles with Brandon Sanderson.
So I actually have Mistborn, I believe it's called.
Yeah, Mistborn it's the same universe, different world.
Yeah, so I have Mistborn right now, on loan.
Mm-hmm.
I did start it.
It's like a mystery. It's a heist. It's a heist.
It is.
It's not a traditional like fantasy. It's a heist. It's a heist book. It's not like romance heavy. It's literally a heist.
And you know what? Because I just came off of all these crappy books, I'm like, no, I need my romance fix in order to be able to enjoy a book that the focus on something else. And I feel like until I get a really good book under my belt, then I can enjoy that book. Because right now I'm just not in a mind space where I can read it's a 25-hour audio book. Most of the audiobooks I read are between 7 and 14 hours. So it's double the length of what I usually read. It seemed like it was interesting. It seemed like it was a good premise, but it felt like it was too much for me to handle right now.
Yep.
Too much book.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And his books are long.
Yes.
But there's a lot of good stuff in them, but they're long. And the payoffs come with time.
Yes.
Like, I think one of my favorite books he's written, at least in the Kingkiller Chronicle, is I think that's what it's called, Kingkiller Chronicle, is the fourth or fifth book where it was just like everything paid off, and I was like, what's happening?
Yeah, and honestly, I even read a few fan fictions this month, a few short ones. I don't know, for whatever reason, my attention span is just not there, so I'm just not.
Well, I mean, I've also been working a lot of late days, so it's like normally what happens is I'll come home from work, I'll get some dinner going, watch our daughter, play with her, and we can kind of tag team the afternoon, which leaves you that you can listen to an audiobook while I'm prepping dinner, and we're both keeping an eye on her, right? But it's like if I'm out the door at 7:30 and I get home at 10, you've had to do your whole work day and drop her off at daycare and pick her up and cook dinner for her and tidy up afterwards, and I'm coming home to basically do a quick clean of the house and whatever chores need to get done and then go to bed. And I've been doing that for a month, 3 days a week, so it's just been a lot of time.
So my light month is your fault, right?
Yeah, 100%. 100% my fault. But haven't missed a week. So listener, I know you're there. We got one recurrent listener that keeps coming back. Pretty sure it's Scott. And thank you very much for tuning in to this September wrap-up episode for Hubris. Again, we always put our episodes out on Monday. Look forward to that. You can hit us up on Twitter, which we don't check. You can find us on Spotify, which automatically uploads, thank God. And I think there's also YouTube, but I think I have to manually, like, we do have YouTube podcasts, and it is set up. But the problem is I have to manually tell it to publish the episodes, and I don't think I've done it for like the last 10 episodes. So I'm just going to have to go on one day and just publish like 17 episodes. But thank you so much for tuning in if you were listening. And we're going to wrap up this almost hour-long podcast with that classic outro Jess does every time without fail.
Happy pumpkin spice season, everybody.
Happy Pumpkin Halloween!